What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today, we have an entrepreneur. He's an online creator, Bitcoin enthusiast, mental health, motivational speaker, you name it. Colin Yurcisin, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, how's it going, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of podcasts, I feel like you start out asking the guest, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. But I want to dive right into the nitty gritty because I think there's a lot of value that we can pull from the show today. And one thing when I'm, researching and watching your content and like understanding your story, a quote came to mind, and that's necessity is the mother of invention. You've rode the roller coaster from $50,000 in debt to building, multi-million-dollar online businesses to then losing it, more than half of it in a day. So when you look at that and kind of when you reflect and think back, how have you been able to constantly and continuously reinvent yourself and get back to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it all boils down to faith, having faith in a relationship with God. And I think that's what I was missing. And that's why I round tripped a few times with my net worth. And, your net worth should be going up and to the right. You might have little blips and small drops, but it should never be dropping 80%, 90%. And if it is, that's because something's obviously inherently really wrong. Whether it be you're making horrible financial decisions, you're in a bad business model that's breaking, and those things will all tend to happen if you're not really focused on God. Because if you're godly and if you're righteous, you're not going to be doing those things. So it's really easy, and that's why tithing is such a important thing. Because when you give God your first 10%, then you're focused on him, and then he's going to take care of the rest. And when you don't tithe, whatever you pay attention to. So if you're not paying God, if you're not paying church, you're not going to be paying attention there at all. And you're going to be obviously, focus on your own desires of the flesh, which are going to lead you astray. So I think that's kind of just what happened to me. And that's what your 20s are for, just going hard and trying to figure it out and making massive mistakes and swinging for the fences and taking risk. And sometimes you eat crap and fall on your face, and you got to just get back up and figure out what went right. And that's kind of, what I've been doing for the past 5-6 years. Like you said, I've been in, multiple online business ventures. The business I'm running today, funny enough, has been the longest standing business out of all of them. And there's been times where I neglected it. I didn't really focus on it. I was going for the easy money, the quick money, coaching, other online products that were quick flips, affiliate marketing, things I didn't really believe in. But thank God I did stick with the one business, even though, there was many situations where it shouldn't have happened how it happened. And maybe I shouldn't have this business because there was a lot of things that happened in between on the journey that it was like, this close on a thread that it could have been lost or, went bankrupt, and, I was neglecting it. So I just thank God every day that, we're here now 4 years later, and I still have, this business, Leverage Mining, which is my number one business. It's an 8-figure company. I'm 100% owner of it now. I bought my partner out in July. Yeah, man, like in a business standpoint, it's been a blessing, but all the journey has been profound, and every lesson that I've learned throughout business has deeply affected me on my personal life and my life of faith as well.
Yeah, there's so much to take from that. I think, you mentioned tithing, right? And, you're an entrepreneur. Like at the end of the day, we pay attention to the dollars that are coming in, the dollars that are going out. And that concept of tithing, even for somebody who's, been a Christian for a while, which I know your journey is relatively new, like that's a hard thing to initially think. There's the abundance mindset of it, but also you're like, well, this is the business. I have to keep putting back into this. Like 10% seems like a large chunk. Psychologically for you, how did you kind of get to that point of saying like, I am going to start here and have this as my number one priority when it comes to my finances?
Yeah, I think it's just what we're supposed to do, right? You got to build the kingdom down on earth. Like if you read the Bible, our main purpose here is to give glory to God through our works, through, our gifts. We want to glorify him. And how you do that is, by being the best Christian you can be, spreading the gospel and giving back in your community, to your church, to your family. Because if I go and retire my parents and, I'm a great son and they talk about me to their friends and they say, oh, he introduced us to the Bible and, he retired me. And, even if they're only telling their close friend or, my grandma or something, now that leads them to go down a path and go look into the word and right. And it just spreads and like goodness spreads. And I don't know if you ever seen that meme of like that strawberry that's sitting next to that rotten strawberry. And then that strawberry starts to get all disgusting. It's who you hang around is who you become. And the gifts you give in this world is likely what that other person's going to do for someone else. So I think, that's really important, how you live. And I honestly forgot the question.
Yeah, no, you really answered it, right? Like it was more around how can you psychologically get to the point as a business owner, and you're always looking, entrepreneurship is hard. You're strapped for cash sometimes, like you're trying to figure out ways to make it work, especially early on. So psychologically, like how can you initially get over that hurdle?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? It's like I'm just gonna give 10%, and I don't, hopefully your church is, transparent with their finances, and you can see, how much your pastor is getting paid and where the money's going and stuff. That makes you feel a little bit better because at least you know where it's going. But really, the whole premise is like you're trusting God. You're giving God 10% of your money, and then he's going to take care of the other 90% of it for you. And that's really it's a test of faith. That's all it is. It's a test of faith, and God proves to be faithful every single time, at least in my life.
Yeah. Take me back to when that wasn't a priority in your life with the businesses that you were running. You were obviously, still successful in doing those things, but from a personal standpoint and then bleeding over into business, the way that you're talking about this really is like, hey, this isn't separation of personal and business. Like this is how I live my life and how I do everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it all boils back to what you're prioritizing, right? Like a lot of people, everyone has a God, right? And everyone says like, hey, I'm a Christian or I pray to God, right? But like, what are your thoughts consumed by? If your thoughts are constantly consumed by money or by greed or by becoming famous, right? If that's all you're thinking about, that is your God. So you have to ask yourself, like, what are my thoughts most consumed by? And if it's Jesus Christ, then Jesus is your God. That's good. But if it's not, then you need to realign your priorities so that God is number one. And then everything else falls into place. And they literally say this in the Bible. They will do good for all of those who love him. I forget the exact verse, but if you focus on God above all things, he's going to, give you everything else. I think it's Matthew 6:33 is the verse I was referring to. So yeah, I would just say, make sure your priorities are straight and everything else is going to be taken care of. And for me, referring to your question, that was just not how I was living in the past. Like I believed that money was my own God, and I was trying to, just only prioritize money. And I had all these goals of like, I want to hit this much liquidity by this age, and just very selfish desires, and for no reason at all. I didn't know why I wanted that. I didn't know what would happen once I hit that goal. Like I already had enough money to do all the things that I should have done, that I'm now doing. Go through this whole roller coaster, and God had to humble me, teach me all these things to now realize like how far a dollar can go and how you can change your life, your family's life, the people around you's lives just through, investments or retiring someone or, buying a home where your family can reside in and have, gatherings. Like that stuff is so much more important than buying a Lambo and, renting a $20,000 a month house.
Yeah.
And, having 5 luxury $100,000 watches. It's like, why do you think God is giving me all this opportunity? And like, I'm the first in my bloodline to be, a successful entrepreneur with all of this availability of success and wealth at my fingertips. It's not for the luxuries and the materialism. Like if I'm reading the Bible, God is telling me that you have to be fruitful. You have to, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. And if I'm a worker and I'm reaping the harvest that I've sown, then I have to share it, right? I can't just keep it all to myself. And so that's, what I've learned over time. And that's really what I'm doing now. I'm just prioritizing my family, my wife, and my friends and my church. And yeah.
Yeah. I think this hits home even more considering, you have that testimony to say, like, I've been to these places, I've done these things, I've bought the Lambos, I've had the watches, I've been self-centered in the fact that like money was the thing that I was constantly chasing, but I realized that, hey, this wasn't everything that it was cracked up to be. For people that have that mindset, do you think that it has to take them getting to that quote unquote goal to have that realization that you're now living?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, everyone's different, right? It would be awesome to say right now that, hey, if you're listening to this, thank God you don't have to go make the same mistakes I did. But that's just not the case, right?
Yeah.
At least for me, like I always have to touch the stove and burn my hand. It doesn't matter if you tell me not to, I'm going to do it. So, and I think there's a beautiful thing about that. Like going through the pain is if you survive the pain, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So, I just feel so much more wise from, 12 months ago to where I'm at now. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. You couldn't give me a $10 million check to take back all the lessons I just learned. It's not worth it. So yeah, you realize like, in Proverbs, they talk about wisdom is more valuable than gold, right? Like you should be seeking wisdom above all things, not money or material items. And that's really what I was chasing. Like, if you go through something horrible and terrible and it was a challenge and it was an obstacle you overcame, now you're more wise and you get to share that with the world. And it's beautiful. It's like you're building up this whole treasure chest of wisdom that you get to share, whether it be online or on podcast or, even with your church or with your family. I think it's one of the most fulfilling things to be able to share those lessons. And yeah, who knows? Who knows if the person on the other end is going to receive it and actually, listen, but hopefully we can affect a couple people.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for context for people that are listening, when was that low point for you to turn to God and say, okay, like I want to start changing the way that I live, the things that I prioritize, the way that I spend my time, the way that I run my business and live my life ultimately? Like what led you to that realization to really change?
Yeah, I mean, it was all over the past, like I would say 18 months. Money really was like my main focus, and I wanted to hit this, net worth goal before I turned 30. So I started taking even more risk, and just doing things that I've never done before, just to try to hit this selfish goal of myself. And once again, there was no clarity on it. It was not well thought out. There's no patience. It was quick. It was, very impulsive. And when you do things quick and impulsively and you're not thinking for the long term, you make some very stupid mistakes. And I wasn't talking to anyone about this stuff. I was hiding things from my wife. I was not telling friends and family that I usually, talk about things with. And it was weird, man. It was almost just like a takeover. Like my selfish desires in my flesh, like took over my spirit. And, I think it was just divine. I think it was God's plan. I think he wanted me to do it. And, God will never tempt you. So like the devil will tempt you, but God will always give you a way to get out of it and redeem you and make you even stronger through it. And that's exactly what happened. Like, although I went down and took this huge tumble, it was mostly just like being stupid with crypto, right? Like making massive trades with, millions of dollars in stupid projects and just being extremely risky, right? Like I had never done that before, and I'm an all-in kind of guy. So, I have a couple massive trades, a lot of success, and then I'm thinking I'm invincible. I've done extremely well up to that point for the past 4 years. I can't lose. Pride always comes before the fall. And so, lost a lot of money, like, liquid in trades and leverage and perps and a bunch of stupid things. And I thought I was a trader overnight, right? I've never traded in my life. I just thought I could magically become a short-term trader, a swing trader. So yeah, lost about $3 million like liquid in a month and a half. So yeah, like a massive, massive drop in my net worth. And why? Because I wanted to achieve a net worth that I would have hit no problem, probably a year later, but I didn't want to wait. And so, it's just like, it's stupid, man. But basically what happened was God completely like realigned me and he met me down at that bottom. And I was so completely destroyed by what I had done. And reality finally hit me and I like stopped everything. I stopped trading. I finally sobered up and I was like, wow, like what have I just done? And I was pretty lost at that point. I had My info product business, my leverage mining company was on its fourth year, but I wasn't even paying attention. I was just like so blindsided and I was so focused on myself. Of myself, what did I do to myself, instead of looking at the bigger picture? Like, I have a massive company, everything's great, like just too blinded to see it. And so yeah, just from my own personal, financial decisions, I really hurt myself. But like I said, God had a plan, and at that bottom he met me, and I was rebuilt by him because I surrendered finally for the first time in my life. I said, you know what, maybe I don't have the maybe I don't actually know what I'm doing, and let me give you a shot for the first time, because everything I've done up to that point was really selfish. Like, it was like quick, very irrational thinking. Was very good at it, but nothing ever was like clear on a long-term view. Right? It was always like I felt like I was like dodging bullets for the past 4 years of everything I was doing, and finally I stumbled, and I was like, okay, you know what? I want peace. I want to do things that align with your will for my life, not what I want. I want to do what you want. Right? Let me try this for once. And so, yeah, just basically surrendered in March of this year. And I was humbled. I went and I started talking with friends that own businesses and started to like, not like intern, but like interview them and like really, drop down to a novice level to just like start to learn again. Like, hey, like what can I do? Was about to go work at a friend's company for a little while. Then I relaunched my other info business, Credit Class, and it took off pretty quick. And I think that was like a test. And then in July, everything changed. Donald Trump passed the big, beautiful bill. We had 100% bonus depreciation come back. And, my mining business at that point had, we've done probably $5 million in revenue over the past 3 years. We're entering our fourth year. And I was like, wow, like, I think now that we have 100% bonus depreciation back, this is going to be a major turning point in mining and oil and gas business, right? All these attractive write-off investments are now back at 100%. So I took full charge, and I was praying every single day, and I had this calling to buy out my partner that I had built the business with. I won't go too much into it, but I just felt that we were unaligned, and I wanted to really take charge and make this a priority. And it's kind of hard to do that when you're like 50-50 with someone. Like, you're devoting your whole life to it, but you're only a 50% owner. But when you're 100% owner, you got full skin in the game. It's your baby. It's like, it's everything. So I, came to a agreement with him. I bought him out, and starting in July, we had our biggest month ever. And then August, biggest month ever. September, biggest month ever. October, biggest month ever by like double.
Wow.
And so it's just been up only, from going from absolute rock bottom, the worst I've ever felt in my life over the past 5 years since becoming an entrepreneur, to within literally 6 months being fully redeemed, having a business that is now, it's crossed 8 figures. We've done almost $5 million in revenue in the past 4 months alone. And it's just been an absolute blessing. And it's like, I'm fully aligned. Bitcoin, was the number one thing that changed my life, other than God, of course. But he aligned me there in 2020, and I started the business in 2022. I should have just focused on that the whole time, right? But the temptation, the short-term money, right? All these things got me off track. And now I had to go through it all, learn all the lessons. Now I have God. I have a business that is something I can do for the next 20, 30 years, right? Like, it's not going anywhere. I believe it's probably the hottest offer online right now. It's helping people secure the number one asset of all time, best performing asset class of all time, and getting them 100% write-off. And so it's been a blessing, man. And I couldn't be more grateful for the journey and everything I had to go through to get to this point, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, that's powerful. Listening to that, and it seems like throughout your story, there's these ripples of like clarity. I like calling it alignment too. Like, whenever you find that thing that aligns with you and you have clarity on it, the ups and downs don't matter as much, and you can really focus a lot of your attention on that thing, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't matter if it was a down month or a down year. Like, you have belief and vision in what you are doing because you have that clarity and peace. And I'm sure, your relationship with God and the things that you went through have allowed for that clarity. But even rewinding the clock for you, leaving your 9 to 5 with no plan and just saying, hey, I have a vision on what I want to do, and it's not this.
Yeah.
Someone that's
Yeah.
there, right? Like, because in today's world, there's so many options, so many things right at our fingertips with what the internet has brought. And so sometimes I feel like it's hard to sift through, where do I really need to spend my time? What's the long-term play, instead of focusing on the fast wins or those types of things. So for you, what does that process look like? Or like, how have you been able to find that clarity to now be full force on someone, even buying your partner out, right? That seemed like a moment of clarity for you as well. So how have you been able to like,
It's alignment with God, man. That's all it is. Like, I know when my choices are aligned with God's will for my life now, like more than anything. I know as soon as I'm making the wrong things, or you ever be in a situation where like maybe you've had a drink and you're talking, you're having a conversation, you're getting a little rowdy, you say something you probably shouldn't have said. And then later that night, you're like walking away and you have this like weird feeling, this like, it feels like your heart is heavy. You have like a weight on your chest. You're like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, I have that discernment now more than I've ever had in my life, because I'm praying every morning. I'm in my word every day. I'm constantly reminding myself, God, 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 God is everything. God comes first. So by doing that, I'm fully aligned, and I can hear him. I can see him, and I know when he's doing things in my life and when I'm doing things in my life. There's a
yeah,
massive difference. So I think that's been the biggest thing, man. Like, the clarity aspect of like what to do in business now. I mean, that move that I made couldn't have been a better timing, and I wouldn't even have known to do that if it wasn't for him. And it's like, I buy my partner out, and then we have one of the biggest months ever because of the big beautiful bill that happened literally after. Right. So it's like, I wouldn't have known, like
yeah.
he knew. And so it's just been, yeah, it's been incredible, man. Just having that relationship where, you are surrendered, like you're on his plan. He can give everything, he can take everything away. And as long as you know that, you have to be obedient, and you have to be a humble servant every single day. Like, as soon as you start getting proud, like, you got to drop down to your knees and humble yourself and start praying again. But you should be praying every day, and then you won't get proud. So it's just this balance, man. Especially when you're making a lot of money, it's so easy to get carried away, to try to exalt yourself and be prideful and boast your chest out. And yeah, like, you start acting different. Like, as soon as that happens, you gotta, you,
Yeah. And it seems like that's almost part of the overarching marketing strategy within the online
oh,
entrepreneurial space. It's
that's
like,
why that's why I do none of it. I do none of it anymore. Zero.
no,
Like,
none
I've
of it.
I've completely changed. Like, I don't boast at all. I told people about, the recent move I did in Tulum, acquired a vacation place for my family, and I didn't like, share it boastfully and like, flaunted it. Like, I would have done that 2 years ago, but now it's like, hey, this is why I did this. And I explained it very, thoughtfully on, why I made this investment and the way I'm thinking about family and positioning for my future. And people got a lot of value from it, right? So I think sharing is great if you're sharing value, but sharing your Lambo and your watch and your all this stuff, like, just to market, to get some 20-year-old to believe that that is God, that's not good. And that's what's happening more than ever in this world. And, people are tired of it.
Yeah, I think it is. It is. People are starting to feel differently, and I feel like there's been a bit of a shift in the energy in terms of like materialism versus spirituality, and finding something that actually creates meaning in your life versus just chasing things and the bottom line. It seems like for you too, and a lot of people that are listening to this, and they see the opportunity that exists with the internet at our fingertips these days, and they want a better life for themselves. You were able to say, hey, here's some things that I went through. Like, early on, I went through credit card debt, and I had experience here. Or with Bitcoin, I, took my bruises and lumps with meme coins and investing in Bitcoin and understanding the technology. And now you have a business there. Like, how can someone take their unique experiences and expertise and boil that down into something that is an actual business that can provide value for people?
That's a great question. And that's how all my businesses started, man. It was just me being interested in something, curious, probably making a lot of mistakes in it. and then solving the problem that I made for myself. And that's how credit class was started, right? I wrecked my credit, got a little too excited, took out a bunch of personal loans, invested in a bunch of businesses that one was a scam, one just failed miserably, $50,000 in personal debt, figured out how to wipe it all. And then I was like, holy crap. I think a lot of people could use this. I shared my experience. I documented the journey. That became the brand, launched Credit Class, and it was just a simple problem that I solved for myself. And then that for the next 5 years, right? It helped hundreds of people clean their credit, travel the world, create an awesome lifestyle. And so same with the mining. I paid $500,000 in taxes in 2021. Horrible experience. Never wanted to do that again. Asked my accountant, hey man, how can I keep buying Bitcoin without paying all this tax? Buy miners. Hey, here's my neighbor. His name is Jason Less. He's the CEO of Riot Blockchain. You should ask him questions. He can help you get situated and give you some resources so you can start mining, right? Just curiosity, having problems because I'm taking massive risk, and then solving the problems that I made for myself, and then creating that as a business. So I would just say, go out there and start failing at stuff, and then figure out what you did wrong, solve it, and then mass market the solution to the world. And even better, if you're solving a big problem for a rich person, that's the best, right? Rich people obviously have all the money. And so if you solve really big problems for really rich people, you can make really big money. And that's what I've done with leverage mining, right? It's not necessarily a crazy concept. It's a very easy business model now that we have everything dialed in. And it's like the least amount of work I've ever done in my life, but the most amount of money, revenue, profit, just because we're solving huge problems for very rich people, and they pay extremely well for these problems to be solved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people listening to this are like, okay, there's these things that I had a lot of, troubles with that other people were probably having similar experiences. And that's one piece of the equation, right? Like understanding what that is that you can solve for. But there's obviously a lot that goes in the middle ground, the action, our mantra, everyday action, extraordinary mindset. The action is first. You can have the best mindset in the world. You still have to execute on that. So for you, like, how have you been able to materialize those actual ideas into becoming something that's real and successful?
Yeah, I mean, action is everything. That's what I've probably done the best at, and I probably do like 1% thinking and 99% action. That's why I have these crazy wipeouts every couple years, because I just go. Boom, like that was really bad. Recover, learn a lot, go. So yeah, I think it's probably better to do like 80-20, 80% action, 20% thinking, put the thinking in front of the action. And I was like the opposite, but I'm starting to get better. I'm probably at that 80-20 range now. And yeah, man, even if you are like me and you're 99% action, 1% thinking, you're going to learn so much faster. And if you want to become successful, you have to speed up the rate of failure, right? Because the more times you fail, the more likely you are to succeed. As crazy as that sounds, like you just have to fail more because you're going to learn more. And then one of those times you try is going to be a win. And that's all it is, man. It's just like, some people get lucky. Some people have the stars align a little bit further in life, or a little bit sooner in life than others. But as long as you don't give up and you just stay curious and you keep trying things, you will succeed. And I think the most important aspect of all of this is faith, like having faith. I can't tell you like how many times I've wanted to actually give up. Like I thought about like, this is just in my head, and maybe it was only like a little brief second of like, holy crap, like I'm a failure. I'm going to call my mom and dad and just probably go live back at my bedroom with them for a little bit, like until I figure it out. Like that's actually how dark my thoughts go. And wow, what a relief. Like that's as bad as it can get. I just go live in a nice house with a family that loves me. Like maybe you're not in a situation like that, but I think going into taking risks, the best thing is to know what the worst outcome could be, right? So like before you take an investment opportunity, before you build a business, why don't you just build a little pie chart or like a T graph? On one side, it's like best outcome. On one side, it's worst outcome. And if you're okay with the worst outcome, go for it, dude.
Yeah.
Like and I never even did that. Like if I would have said, okay, this trade, I'm taking $1 million out of my, savings that I've saved 5 years for, and I'm going to put it in this trade, it could go to zero. And I didn't think that. I'm like, it's not going to zero, right? But like you can mess up really bad if you're not thinking things through. So I would say, yes, you have to be analytical. But taking action is always like, nothing's going to get done unless you take action. Faith without action is dead, right? That's literally in the Bible.
Yeah. Faith without works is dead. Yeah. 100%. So I think putting this all together, right? There's the clarity piece, there's the action piece, but also nobody is going to buy a product or an idea or get the help that someone can offer if they don't know you exist. And I think you've done a great job on the marketing side of being able to grab attention and be able to actually, enunciate the value and be able to reach the right people. And I know for probably your mining business, a lot of that comes through connections and the circle that you've built. But in the age of attention, short form, social media becomes more saturated. We have AI and all of these things that are continuing to grow. Where do you see like the next phase of marketing and social media and all of these things, fitting into the distribution space to actually get people to see what you have to offer?
It's a good question, man. And it's kind of crazy because now for the first time in a long time, like I'm not really using social media, and it's cool. Like I like social media for sharing like my faith and my journey and my lessons that I've learned, but my business is a lot different. I'm partnered with tax strategists and accounting firms. And so it's all referrals. So it's funny, like you asked me 2 years ago, like personal brand, like, what do you think about it? It's the most important thing ever. And now I'm like on the other side of it where it's like, yeah, like I don't need it at all for my business, which is so crazy when I've taught personal branding for the past 5 years. But I still think, if I wouldn't have built my brand, I wouldn't have this business. Sure. Because I wouldn't have the connection to get the resources that I have now to build this company. So I think it was all just a stepping stone for me, and it's funny how it all worked out. But what would I say with AI? I think regardless of how crazy AI is going to get, there's always opportunity. Like there's never a period in time where it's like, yep, you got, people graduating college today, everyone's saying like, oh, this generation's done for, like they have no opportunity. It's like, dude, if you graduated college 2 years ago and you just bought NVIDIA, you'd be up 25x. Like there's opportunity everywhere all the time. It doesn't matter. You could go to zero tomorrow and you could be a multi-millionaire in 5 years. Like hard stop. It's always out there. So just be curious. Like I think curiosity is going to lead you to how to integrate with AI, right? Like how do I not let AI take my job and take my content creation agency or my, copy agency, but how do I integrate it and build an offer around that, right? I was just talking to my buddy Jordan Welch like an hour ago, and he completely rebranded his e-commerce business, and it's called like Ecom AI. Right. And it's like a hot buzzword, and he's now has components of AI that's integrated into the offer, and it's selling better than anything he's launched in the past couple of years. So, instead of just being a doomer, just be optimistic and just be curious, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. It's interesting your take on the social media piece, because that's been such a huge part of, like you said, personal branding and how you've gotten into those specific rooms. I feel like from creating content over the last 5 years, I look at it the same way. Like a lot of times, that's the open door. It's not the end result, because a lot of those things, even though you can make great money on social media, you're going to want to build something that is sustainable, that you're not eventually being the face of, right? Like if you want to have an exit or those types of things. So that's the way I look at it. Like it's a stepping stone in the right direction. It's leverage for great connections because you have built an audience, but it shouldn't be looked at as like the end result is for me to have X amount of followers or do X, Y, Z, or be able to do that online.
For sure. And that's a lot of people's obsession, right? It's just like the money thing and the net worth thing. Oh, I need to get to 1 million followers by 2026 or else my life is over. right? And they slave away like a little hamster on a wheel to get to that number. And then they get to that number and nothing in their life has changed. You know, they're not closer with God. They didn't really make more money because they were focused on views and not a business. You know, the same stuff, man. It happens to a lot of people. Same with like material possessions. Oh, I need to get this car by this time or my life is over. And then they do anything to get it, which is completely out of line from what God wants for you. And then you get the car and then you're all out of whack and you're just lost. And that's like most people today, right? Because they're looking up to people that are actually lost. A lot of the people today that kids are looking up to are the furthest away from God. So what's happening? They're leading kids astray from God as well.
Yeah. And that's huge. You said earlier the analogy with the strawberries, like who you hang around with and the people that you engage with and, you know, the ideas and beliefs and the values, especially the people you do business with, like that's going to rub off on you in one way or another, you know, if you're around that long enough. So how do you find, especially now with your new walk with faith and still, you know, growing business, like how do you find and create that circle? Because I feel like it's a big thing. COVID kind of exacerbated it, but how do we find those people that aren't just surface level friends, right? That you can talk about the hard things with. Like that's a big issue that I feel like a lot of people, especially young men, are going through.
Go to your local church, man. Build a relationship with your pastor, your church team, right? Like we have something called Crew, and it's like every 2 weeks, and you meet in small groups of either couples, men, women, and you discuss the Bible, you discuss your faith, you discuss all the hard things that are not surface level. And so like now my number one priority on the weekends is going to dinners with Christians, meeting people that I used to never want to talk to, right? If it was me 4 years ago, I'd think, oh, that guy's a nerd, or, oh, he doesn't have a personal brand. I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. Like I'm trying to go learn from someone that's been on their walk for 10, 20 years. I'd rather do that than go to dinner with some dude that has 5 Lambos and a Richard Mille and is going to teach me how to scam kids online. Like, that's the reality of what people are doing nowadays. So yeah, man, for me, it's just like, I'd rather go to church. I'd rather read the Bible than go to the club and go to, you know, a fancy dinner at 10 at night. Like, it's just not who I am anymore.
Yeah, you'd mentioned your wife as well. I love the, you know, the quote from Charlie Munger. The 3 things that take down most men is leverage, liquor, and lust. Like,
That's so true.
what? And I think we can all say we've definitely dabbled in all of those. So it's like,
Yeah.
how has having a loving and lasting relationship for you not only helped you personally, but also in your business?
It's everything, bro. I don't know if I'd be here today if I didn't have that gifted to me by God right when I started entrepreneurship. Literally, like I became an entrepreneur in, August of 2020 is when I quit my job. And by January of 2020, I had met my wife in Bali the first day I got there. So it was like an instant, like, all right, here you go, Colin. Because like I was already going off in the deep end with women, liquor, soon to be leverage. If I didn't meet, you know what I mean? So, but I eventually got caught up with the leverage too. So you got to go through it. You know, you do got to go through it. But I think having a woman, you know, whether she's in her faith, you know, or you can be the leading example. And, you know, like the strawberry example, if you're in your faith, you know, probably your girl's going to get there too at some point. So that's kind of what's been happening with us. And it's been beautiful. And she's one of the most supportive women I've ever met in my life. And she's incredible, man. And I think, you know, having built a relationship with someone for so long, you know, without separating is it's profound. Like I've never had a relationship like this where you're spending every day with someone for 6 years. And it just keeps compounding. It keeps snowballing, right? The gifts just keep growing and the fruit just keeps multiplying. And that's really one of the biggest lessons I've learned so far in life is like all the good things take time. Like if you have a short-term vision for anything, just stop playing. Like it's not worth it. So with business, the fruits of the labor of the business aren't even going to start until like year 4. Imagine year 10. What about 20, 30, 40, 50? Warren Buffett, like 80 years, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. I'm 5 years into this game. It's like I'm a little noob. So just humble yourself, man. And it's like, this is kind of off topic of the relationship, but I really think that like everything will be better for you in your journey if you're thinking 10, 20 years down the road. Don't do anything thinking 1 year. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, being newly married myself as well, it allows you to think about more than just yourself. I think that's been a theme here, like the selfishness, always thinking about, okay, what's in it for me? What can this person give me? And then it kind of changes your perspective to like, how can I provide better? How can I be of service? How can I be a good husband or a good father? And that's really, it comes down to a lot of sacrifice. It's hard. It's something you have to choose every day, just like your faith. So I feel like that was when I got married, it also allowed me to start leaning into faith more because I started thinking less selfishly and started thinking more long term, like you said. So yeah, it's definitely a blessing, but it's something you have to choose every day.
It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah. On the crypto side, like you said, it's an exciting time. Bitcoin is doing its thing. What was like your first exposure to Bitcoin? Because I know it was a big foundation for, allowing you to do a lot of the things that you now do. And obviously now with the mining business, it's centered around Bitcoin and wealth building, tax incentives, and those types of things. So with everything that's going on with macroeconomics, the bill that's being passed, like, how can people start looking at Bitcoin differently?
Yeah, I mean, I just think now compared to 4 years ago, the argument about it being banned is just gone, right? Like we have a crypto strategic reserve. We have Trump's son has a mining business. Trump has launched a meme coin, right? Like the government is fully immersed in Bitcoin and crypto, probably more crypto than Bitcoin, which is horrible. They'll probably learn their lesson the hard way. But I think, now with all these mining companies now kind of becoming these, AI infrastructure businesses almost overnight, there's a demand for power. And it is extremely scarce right now. There's not enough power to go around for all this AI that is booming. And so, yeah, you just have to think like, what is the future? And in my opinion, it is AI and it is Bitcoin. Not necessarily the crypto thing for me. I think the only other value of the crypto is going to be a stable coin, which is eventually going to become what do you call it? A CBDC, which is, how they track us, all of our movement, every dollar spent is going to be either integrated into Tether or USDC, and that's really scary. So I stay away from that stuff. I just mine Bitcoin. I own a lot of Bitcoin. I store it cold storage offline. No one can, get my keys, and that gives me full autonomy. And I'm a sovereign individual, right? I hold the keys to my own wealth. You can memorize your seed phrase in your head, and as long as you know it, no one can get it from you. Even if you take your ledger and I throw it in the ocean, as long as I got my 24 words, I can set up a backup and boom, all my Bitcoin's there. So it's really profound once you realize the implications of what Bitcoin actually is as a money and as a payment rail system that is fully interoperable with everyone in the world. It's peer to peer, and there's no central bank or a government that can get in the way of it. So for me, that's once you realize like what it is, it's the most scarce asset of all time as well, and it continues to become more and more deflationary by nature. It's like, wow, like I need to like buy some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And own as much as possible, because if you just own one Bitcoin out of 21 million, you own one out of 21 million forever. Like no one can take that. No one can print more supply, which is completely untrue about every other currency that's ever been created. Even gold, right? You can mine more gold all the time. They're always finding more gold. So yeah, man, that's kind of like my thesis. And that's really all you got to think about. And the ETFs are all approved, right? There's trillions of dollars of capital now rushing into Bitcoin. And we're over 100K. Like when I started buying Bitcoin, it was $4,000. And that was 5 years ago. Like imagine where we're going to be in 5 years from now, probably $500,000. Yeah. So if Bitcoin's going to $1 million, you have a 10X right there. You shouldn't be thinking about Bitcoin as like a trade. You should just be thinking about it as a savings account. And once you kind of graduate your thoughts to that, it makes life a lot easier. Don't look at the day-to-day price. Once again, it's a 10, 20, even 30-year plan. You're not going to have to sell your Bitcoin ever because you could loan against it. My guess is they get rid of the taxes on Bitcoin, like capital gains. You should be able to just swap in and out of money, Bitcoin, dollars, stable coins. They're going to make it all interoperable. So yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things to come. Once again, I think there will be more opportunity. Even if you think, oh, well, Bitcoin just went from 15K in 2022 to 120K now. Dude, we could sell off to 55K and then what? You're not going to want to buy it. Right. So like it's just the same thing. So take your emotions out of it. Dollar cost average, mine Bitcoin. If you are a high income earner, you can mine with us at Leverage Mining. We make it really easy. We source your equipment, we put you on a 4-year electricity contract. You pay one time and you're mining for the next 4 years and you get to write off the entire business. So that's what I've done since 2022. I don't buy Bitcoin spot anymore because I want to kill two birds with one stone. I want to get a tax write-off. I want to wipe my ordinary income, and I want to also save my Bitcoin, but not have it go through all these exchanges and centralized protocols that, can endanger me to getting my identity stolen, being phished. There's all these phishing scams now. And, I don't want the government having backdoors to how much money I own. So that's why I mine.
Yeah. For someone listening to this, they may be like, okay, I know about Bitcoin or I understand the basic thesis that you just explained. But for mining itself, for someone who's completely new to the space, how does mining work? And like, what does that process actually entail?
For mining, so really simple, number one thing you should know is your tax liability, right? Because if you don't have a tax problem, then you should just go buy Bitcoin, right? Like I only work with people that want to eliminate your taxes. Otherwise, I'd rather you just buy Bitcoin today. You know exactly how much you own. You could put it away, right? Mining is more of a dollar cost average strategy where you're buying the miners and the electricity up front. And then you're mining over the next 4 years. 4 years is our contract length because that's the average lifespan of a Bitcoin mining machine before it starts to have a bunch of problems and break down. So yeah, essentially what you do is you look up your tax liability, meet with a tax strategist, your accountant. Okay, I owe $20,000 to the IRS. Great. Well, you could either pay the IRS 20 grand or you can invest about, let's say 50, 60 grand into a mining package and you get yourself 3 miners and that's going to wipe out that $20,000 tax bill that you had. So yeah, you're going to invest more up front because you get to write 100% write off just means whatever your marginal tax rate is. So let's say you're at a 37% marginal tax bracket. That's the highest in the US. That means you're earning over 550 grand. So let's say you invested $60,000. You would just take 60,000, you would times it by your marginal tax rate of 37. Boom, $22,200 would be your dollar for dollar savings off of your tax bill. Guess what? If you owe 20 grand, you wipe out the 20 and you also get to carry over that extra 2 into next year and you have more write-offs, right? So that's essentially the business model. And all that money is coming back to you in Bitcoin over 4 years. So you're gonna get that 60K back. And Bitcoin goes up 40, 50% annualized every year for the past 15 years. So not only are you going to recoup the money you just invested to wipe out your taxes, you're probably going to get a 4x or 5x on your money over the next 4 years as long as you hold it. And that's literally what's happened since 2022. The investors that joined us in 2022, they were like turned off. They're, we're heading into a bear market. Everything's blowing up. FTX blows up. Celsius blows up. BlockFi blows up. And I'm sitting here trying to shill Bitcoin miners. People are thinking I'm crazy, but I was relentless in my pursuit. I believed in what mining was and, the tax write-off. And I still sold, probably $1 million worth of miners that year. And all those investors ROI'd by 2024. And they're all like, dude, this was like the best thing I ever did. I wiped my tax liability. Right. I got all this Bitcoin now. Bitcoin's at 100K, right? So the people that invest when you're scared, those are the ones that do well. But the people invest when everyone else is, the experienced investors are kind of getting out of the market. Those are the people that have to learn, right? And you get humbled a little, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. And I'm a buyer of miners all the time. Like I just dollar cost average into miners. Whenever, I pay myself out to my personal, I'll just purchase miners and I'll eliminate my tax liability and I'll continue to stack Bitcoin.
So there's the tax liability piece up front, but then how are you recouping that? So I guess how much Bitcoin can you mine within a year? It's a 4-year cycle. You're saying not only get the tax liability, the tax incentive, but you also get to dollar cost average into Bitcoin and then take self-custody. So what does that self-custody and the actual Bitcoin that you receive look like over a year or 4 year span?
Yeah, so I mean, on our website, we have a calculator that updates every 10 minutes. So if you just go look at our package prices, you can see, how much you got to spend for that amount of miners, and then what your monthly, revenue would be in terms of Bitcoin. So today, on our 810 terahash package, that's 3 miners, you'd be earning approximately $1,051 a month right now. So, for a 65K investment, you're earning today, at today's economics, that can change. It can go higher, it can go lower. Sure. But, when can you earn $1,000 a month just spending 65 grand? You can't even do that in real estate. If you buy a house for 450K, your rents are probably going to come out to, I don't know, maybe 3K a month. Your mortgage is like 2K a month. You're going to net, probably less or the same amount, but you had to take out a $450,000 liability. When you could just buy Bitcoin miners, you get way higher of a write-off, because with real estate, you can only write off the property. You can't write off the land, right? And usually there's big yards, and, the percentage of building versus the land is pretty different, right? So yeah, I just think overall it's way easier. You don't have to do financing. You don't have to get tenants. You don't have to get cameras around the house and furnish it. And, real estate is hard. I sold all my real estate last year. I had 3 properties over the past 5 years, and it's just not worth it for me, living in this time of opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point. It seems like everything at the moment, including real estate, is at all-time highs, yet the sentiment is kind of, bearish, which is an interesting place to be in. I see the argument on both sides of like, okay, well, yes, we're at all-time highs, but at the same time, with what AI has been doing and the efficiencies that it's been providing, your balance sheets on a lot of these large companies are just continuing to go up. They're continuing to make more money. So how could you be bearish in a situation like that? So it's a weird psychological time when you look at all of these companies that on their balance sheets, they're doing the best they've ever done, but you're looking at all-time highs and investors are like, should I buy at the top, or feel like they're buying at the top?
Yeah, but dude, people felt like they were buying at the top 10 years ago on Google and Amazon and Facebook and all the Mag 7, and now look what they're at. It's like everything's going up forever. The best things are going up forever. You have your whole lifetime to watch them go up, as long as you're not buying meme coins, right? Just look at what the government is buying, right? What is Donald Trump doing? They just took a 10% stake in Intel. I should probably buy Intel, right? It's a chip manufacturer. Chips power AI. Is just beginning. It started in 2022, right? We're literally at the first inning of an AI super cycle that could last like 10, 20 years before things starting to flatten out. So, I mean, for me, yeah, I don't know. Like typically Bitcoin sells off the year after the bull market, right? Mm-hmm. And 2025 Q4, everyone's thinking, okay, Bitcoin just topped at 126K. But who knows? Like, even if we do drop down to 60K next year, does it really matter on a 10-year time frame? No. Like, we're locked in for 10 years. Who cares about a 1-year bear market? As long as you could survive and invest like 70% of your income and buy at those cheap prices, Bitcoin's going to go to 200K by 2028, right? Is it that big of a difference, 2026 versus 2028 in the grand scheme of things? Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. It's an exciting time. And there's a lot of things going on. There's now more distractions than ever all around the place. And especially when you're running a business, when you're trying to be successful, create lasting relationships, do all these things and build the life that you want to lead, you have to see through that noise and find your signal and, remain firm in your internal state to be able to make proper decisions. I know that you are big on fitness. Obviously, we've talked about faith. But what are other internal practices or ways that you maintain that equilibrium for yourself to be able to, stay grounded during what seems like pretty chaotic times?
Prayer, bro. I mean, I stopped doing everything. I, of course, work out. I work out, 5-6 times a week. I feel like there's a lot of vanity in working out as well. Like once you get into bodybuilding and stuff, you're kind of just, once again, it's like puffing out your chest. Like,
right.
Why do we need to be this big, right? So I've kind of realized that lately. I think that's more discernment from God recently. So I haven't been, I was on peptides and I got like massive, and I was like, do I really need this? Like, not really. Like, I've been working out for what, 13 years now. It's good for your mental health. That's it. You got to sweat every day. We all know that. It's good for your bone health and longevity, right? Having muscles is better than not having muscles. So yeah, you need it. But like for me, I think it's just get in there 45 minutes. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to hit a PR every time. Just maintain, sweat, feel good, get out, right? So that's it for working out for me. But dude, for me, I mean, I gave up. I used to do like a love letter to money every day, right? You could see the problem with that happens after a long time. That becomes your God.
Right.
I used to do a gratitude list. I still think that's very important. But lately, man, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just pray and I just get in the Word, and that's it. Like, I'm not even meditating anymore. Like, I'll meditate on God's Word, but I'm not meditating in my own like void where I'm trying to manifest my life. Like, I'd rather just give it all up to God at this point, and He's proved Himself faithful and worthy. And so for me, that's just been the most profound thing. So for me, 20 minutes in the morning of Bible prayer, and I start my day. I walk my dog. I listen to gospel music every morning right when I walk my dog. I look up at the stars, and I could just feel God's presence. And for me, that beats everything.
Yeah. It's simplicity is hard to accomplish, but when you get to that point, it makes everything else easier. All right, rapid fire to end the show. I'm going to throw a couple questions at your way. Biggest risk you take again?
Going all in on Bitcoin.
One principle you live by?
Go all in.
Something you believe now that most people disagree with?
Bitcoin's going to $1 million.
And last but not least, what is your definition of success?
Peace that transcends all understanding.
Mic drop. Amazing. Colin, thank you for joining the show today. Where can everybody find you on your socials, Bitcoin mining business, all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can hit me up, Colin Yurcisin, on all socials, all platforms, and then leveragemining.com.
You heard it from him here first on the Breathe in Air podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode, and we will catch you all next week.
Thanks, brother.